So I'm Michael Wood, and my project is the Edsel by Ford Motor Company. So the Edsel was a medium cost car produced by Ford Motor Company made to challenge General Motors across all bases of cost for automobiles. So you say from low cost to high cost and including the medium cost. So the medium cost would improve Ford Motor Company or FMC's position in the medium car marketplace, which would supplement Mercury, which I believe has been discontinued, is kind of gone now. And what this really indicates was FMC's effort to challenge GM across all levels and really execute a large plan. And Edsel was a key component of that because it's a key dimension to create a one-on-one battle against the existing prominent competitors within the automobile industry. So there are three major dimensions of failure for the Edsel, and it relates to it not really selling well, and that's like the ultimate cause of failure. It's like it didn't sell. So the first dimension is really your resource management. So how are resources allocated at FMC, and then how are they estimated at FMC? And then in terms of project intent, so what the intent was and how does it affect decision making? And then lastly is your understanding of the stakeholder and what was ultimately missing during the gathering of knowledge about your stakeholders, and the key stakeholder being a customer. So with resource management, the key error in the Edsel was the allocation of resources at FMC. So the main allocation error is the fragmentation of existing infrastructure and competencies across 5 divisions to accommodate the newly made models to challenge GM and the Buick, Oldsmobile, and Pontiac kind of prominent competitors in the automobile industry. So this existing fragmenting, what it does is it means that you're losing your infrastructure and known competencies that are already established. So you have to be spending more to gather those competencies back. Like you might know how to do it, but you still have to spend to get that back. And then the last part of that is your personality. You're fragmenting your personnel, so you don't have experience across the board. And experience is a very big piece in project management. We've gotten a clear understanding of what experience does for your project, and fragmenting and splitting up your experience across an organization that doesn't have the structure that fits that the personnel that are already there leads to a disastrous outcome. The next component of this is your estimation process. So there's a big plan, which is what it's called through various resources about the Edsel, and that comes from Tom Dick, where it's referenced as the big plan for Frank Reith and Louis Crusoe. And the estimate for that cost was, for that big plan to challenge everything across the board, one-on-one, essentially speaking, is a 485 million US dollars in the late 1950s, mid to late 1950s. And what happened was that estimate, while it is objectively large, it was still not enough, and it was still inaccurate. And it was already doubled up, like not even 2 years after the project started and the plan was being implemented and executed. It exceeded $1 billion maybe 18 months after the fragmentation of divisions and sort of trying to implement everything across the board. And that already indicates that they didn't know exactly what they were undertaking. And that's a big problem when you're considering what you're doing with the project. That'll lead to failure. So the second part of this is the project intent. The intent really was beat GM. That's kind of what's evident from the big plan, all of that. And with that, what happens is you get worried about, are they making decisions because they're trying to just beat GM and not just make quality products? People are going to buy them anyways if they're quality. If they're good products, not we must beat GM, we must beat GM, we must chase the numbers. You think about like financial fraud, chase the numbers, not make good things. And I think that's what happened with the Edsel, where you're being hasty with your quality control. And that leads to not selling it because it's like, if you think it's a bad product, you're not going to buy it. And then the last part is understanding the stakeholders. And when you don't understand the stakeholders completely, you're not going to deliver something that they will accept. In this case, there's a little bit of nuance here because the Edsel and the understanding FMC got about it, it was actually pretty sound for the time period. But ultimately, now that you're in 2025, it was incomplete because the styling or the aesthetics or design, like the exterior, was not fully researched and studied with consumers. It was more of a professional judgment thing. And what that does for you is you're making your ideas imposed on other people. And in the 50s, there was a shift towards more foreign cars, anything more about practicality instead of more the flashy, gaudy, muscle type cars. And what that led to is you didn't fully understand the stakeholders, even though the research um, demographic segmentation was correct. Those things were sound, but ultimately there was a failure on the styling side. And that's one thing that led to the lack of sales for the Edsel, and that ultimately led to failure. So from a project management perspective, the big thing there is the estimates to get an understanding, more principled approach to estimates to say, this is what the project really requires. And the iterative planning process to say, as you get more information, you'll get a better estimate. And that estimate saying, well, these are some really big challenges from the approach that we're trying to take. And then getting an understanding of high risk, very high risk, which the Edsel and that big plan really was a very high risk plan. But the compelling rallying cry of Beat GM kind of overtook that. And then the last part is the stakeholder understanding. You want to think about the broader perspective of understanding your stakeholders, because you can think about stakeholders that aren't directly involved or affected, but they might have an influence on your actions like a regulatory body, and that may affect when you want to roll things out, how you want to promote your products, or what you want to use to create those products. So that broader perspective might also include how your project impacts stakeholders, all facets of the product and of the project, and how it is perceived by the stakeholder to accept it. So yeah, project management is a really big thing on the planning side for me. That's when I noticed the execution wasn't all faulty. There weren't many major deficiencies on that side. It's really the plan didn't fit completely, and because it was missing on that front, it led to a failure for Ford Motor Company. And the effect and the anticipated effect of trying to just take over the market didn't happen. It just really went back to normal, and it really reconsolidated their organizational structure after that.